Welcome to the Ambition Nation Listed 50. I'm Ollie Barrett, and in this series we get to meet the leaders of some of Britain's best performing small and medium-sized listed companies. We'll find out what they've learnt over the last couple of years. We'll discover what the phrase changing gears means to them today. And of course, we'll find out what the road ahead looks like. So welcome. This is Ambition Nation. I'm joined by Chris Barnes, Chief Executive of Tracsis. Chris, great to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
Fascinating business, Tracsis. Two very different sides to the business. Just remind us, one part data?
One part data and analytics, and one part rail technology.
The rail technology, so this is making sure that the trains run on time.
And a lot more than that as well.
Yeah.
So it's a business focused on solving sort of complex optimization challenges. So how do you drive a more efficient public transport network? How do you improve asset performance? How do you ultimately deliver a better end product to the customer?
Yeah, got it. And back on the first one, on the data analytics, what's the sort of problem or a challenge you would help someone solve? Just help us get a picture of it.
So it's everything from, so you can't solve a problem unless you have the data. So it's everything from how do you actually capture the data to start with? How do you then curate that data so you know you're looking at something that actually makes sense? Through to then, how do you use that to give an insight that you perhaps wouldn't be able to get otherwise? So an example of that would be, let's take our remote condition monitoring business. So it monitors the performance of certain assets on the railway. Now you can use that data to start looking at trends around, well, when's a component going to fail? What's the trend analysis on that? Can you improve the performance of the railway by just looking at data in a different way?
Yeah, and beyond the UK?
Yes, so we've just completed our first acquisition in North America. So we bought a business called Railcom, really exciting addition to the business. So the plan now is, can we repeat the success of Tracsis in the UK in the North American market?
Excellent. So really interesting crossroads for you. Tell me about the business. What does the road ahead look like?
So the road ahead is around, there's a changing landscape in the UK with regards to the rail industry. Yeah. So there is a focus really around, it's a safety critical industry. It's got to improve the customer experience that goes with that, but it wants to use more and more data to be much smarter about how it delivers those solutions. So the UK market for us in rail is about offering the technology and services that supports that journey. Yeah. But as a group, what we really love to do is now take that expertise and now take that into North America and then into other markets. So the journey for us as a business is linking together the fact that if you have the software and the hardware, which generates the data, and you then have the big data expertise to analyze that data, I think it then starts to get really quite powerful in terms of, well, what can you do to greatly improve the service and the experience that you offer today.
So how do you know that the moment is right to push into a new market?
3 years ago when I took over as Chief Executive, we did a detailed search of the North American market, recognizing that it's a huge market. Really interesting output from that. The sort of key finding was that there wasn't a Tracsis-like business in North America. So there wasn't somebody we could just go and acquire. But the great news is there isn't a business like Tracsis in North America. So what we wanted to do was find a business that had the same culture, the same entrepreneurship as us, but was well established and could enable us to take a really calculated move into that marketplace. And then bring the technology and services that we've proven here in the UK into that market.
When you've identified that business, what are you then doing? Striking a partnership, doing a deal with them? What, because you talked about identifying that right business. Well, what does that deal then look like?
Well, so from that search we did 3 years ago, interestingly, Railcom was our number one target. Yeah. But as you know, in acquisitions, you can have a target, but it may never become available. So the business approached us last autumn looking to sell, and it was just one of those moments where you're like, this is the moment where we need to do this. So the way, and obviously a lot of people are always very nervous when a British company moves to America. So we're sending one of our senior leaders is moving to America with his family to make sure we join the business together. And then there's going to be a very calculated program of how do we then take a piece of technology that is doing really well in the UK, get the messaging right that's relevant for the North American customer, and then use that as a staging point into the US. So if we get this right, it's going to be fascinating because how do we then set up a new development team in the US and take some of those products on a different journey? So it's going to be fascinating. It is going to be a fascinating road ahead.
What's the top lesson you've learned?
In this business, and I think in any business, the key leadership skill from my perspective is energizing and empowering those individuals that got you where you got to. So in our business, we've bought 17 companies that we bought because they were really entrepreneurial and were first to market with a piece of technology. My secret so far has been to really energize those individuals and say to them, look, what got us here, let's just do more of that. Yeah. But if we've got a group structure behind that can provide the financing and the support, etc., well, surely we can do more of that and faster. Yeah. So we're still on that journey, but that's at the crux of it. So when we buy a business, it's not the financials that are the key thing, it's the culture, and can you look people in the eye and sense, yeah, we're all in this together.
Briefly, that phrase changing gears, what's your more personal take on that? What does that mean to you as a leader?
My passion is the people that work for me. So we've just invested in what we're calling the One Tracsis leadership program. So it's the first time we've put in place a really focused leadership program for the next generation of people coming through the organisation. And I'm really proud of that because that's something I wanted to do from the day I joined the business. It's about now creating that next set of leaders in the organisation who can, you know, put me under pressure, put all of us under pressure to kind of deliver more, do it more quickly. So for me as a leader, it's about energizing, it's about empowering, but it's setting the vision whereby I'm not being prescriptive in that you have to do A followed by B followed by C, but that's where we want to get to. Yeah. And if you want to be part of the journey, you know, we're going to invest in you as part of that journey.
3 years into leading the business, a look in the rearview mirror, the biggest leadership lesson you've learned, Chris?
I think my biggest lesson learned is when you set the vision, you've got to recognise that the organisation all moves at different speeds. Yeah. And you've got to be able to take people on that journey. So at one level, you've got investors where you're selling a particular investment story. And then to an employee who may be very specialist in a particular area, a lot of what you might talk about at a group level kind of has no real context to it. So what we've been trying to do is simplify that story as you go through the organisation. So we've just completed a whole series of round company briefings where everybody's invited into the office. We have pizza for lunch or we go out for a beer after work. And we're encouraging people, ask questions, you know, really get under the skin of what it is we do. You know, what does this mean? What does that mean? So we've still got a journey to go there, but it is very much around that. How do you get everybody, from everything from a shareholder right the way through to your employees, totally invested in where you're trying to get to as a business?
It's interesting because there's an additional benefit there. It's not just understanding, it's actually getting more brains on more bits of the business, which probably is only a good thing.
Totally. I mean, we've got some fantastic people who just brilliant ideas. I see my role, and you know, Andy Kelly as CFO's role is how do we help mobilise and energise those? So how do we give them the financing, the resources, everything else that's needed to bring this stuff to life? Yeah. And yeah, we've got some great tech coming through the business. We've got some brilliant ideas. It's just how can we be first to market and faster to market than anybody else? So it's really exciting.
Thank you for sharing the latest on that journey with us today, Chris Barnes. Great to see you again.
Yep, my pleasure. Thank you.